Hello and welcome information architecture students to class number 4, part 1. As I say here, week 6. Believe it or not, this is halfway through the course where we are going to be looking at navigation systems and dark patterns in this particular section. So again, this is intended for the use of University of Toronto students enrolled in the Faculty of Information who are taking the INF 2170 Information Architecture course. Without further ado, let's have a look at navigation systems. So, as I say here, why is navigation so important? And, it really boils down to, getting lost sucks. It really does. Getting lost is, as I say here, associated with confusion, frustration, anger, and fear. Let's say you're in this particular mall and, even if you've been here before, let's say you're going to, say, a dentist appointment or a doctor's appointment and you've never been to that office before and you don't know where to look necessarily. Well, this is where you have, wayfinding devices just like this, providing these days interactive maps showing where to look for things. And in this case, some of these particular setups have things where you can actually type in things like, say, doctor's office or dentist, and then it'll bring up a specific map showing you where you are and where you need to go. So in general, and this, in general, we have developed navigation tools to prevent users from getting lost and to help them find their way around various aspects of the website. So having said that, what are the most frequently what's the most frequently used navigation feature on the web? And, this is necessarily within the website itself, this is actually part of the interface, but it is essentially the back button because it provides a way for people to backtrack and get out of the situation that they're in, which is clearly not where they want to be, in order to get back to something or somewhere that they're more familiar with, and then from there to perhaps navigate on to where they do want to go. So essentially, it allows you to essentially back up and then go down a different path. It also shows how people think about navigating and wayfind through situations because they delve from a comfortable to the uncomfortable. And essentially, good navigation systems, they are there to comfort users. Understanding where one is and where one can go helps make someone feel comfortable. Comfort helps to breed familiarity, and from familiarity, what better way to make people spend time here / find the information they want / spend the money they have, so on and so forth. And this particular picture is a 90-mile-per-hour drivable sofa, street legal apparently from Ed China, and I tried to find the photo information for this, but couldn't. This was actually picked up from a Reddit feed, but love that photo. So that's got to be comfort. Yeah, comfort. All right, so typical. Sort of old-fashioned navigation systems in terms of the real-world systems within, say, something like a mall. This is a very typical old style of map, and many places still, of course, have this sort of thing. Saying, essentially, you have a static display with the various sort of anchor stores identified. In this particular case, this is clearly an American map. Because of, some of the stores are something not up here in Canada, but it doesn't give you in this case individual details as to what the numbered stores are, though there may be a list underneath it. But anyways, the point of this is just to give you an idea as to this is a classic mall map with a you are here pointer and star. This is this should be common to pretty much everybody in this room, I imagine. So what you're more likely to see these days is an interactive version of this, where you essentially have a similar version of the map, but now you're looking at, you're now looking at the individual. You have a place to be able to type in information as to the store or perhaps doctor's office or dentist's office or what have you. But again, you sort of look at this and it's like, well, is this really better? It kind of involves a lot of typing, and the thing isn't terribly big. You can just make out the Sears endpoint and the Hudson's Bay at the other, but it's not, and the you are here is, well, it's pointing to a location, but there's no star. I would say that this is not necessarily an improvement over the old one that we just saw, but these systems are changing and evolving. Here's a much more recent one. This is actually from the Eaton Center. And as you can see, they are bigger and they're much more interactive. And in fact, they are draggable and scrollable. They're touchscreen sensitive. The idea is that you can actually essentially not only essentially type in information, but you can also drag information around and also sort of determine where it is that you're likely to go. And the other interesting thing is that, my understanding is that it tends to load up the places that are essentially the most searched for, the most below, so that people can essentially click on perhaps a store name or a particular type of location that comes up the most, and then it provides a map saying here you are and here's where you need to go. And it was interesting. There was some controversy when these things were originally put in, when it was revealed that these displays were in fact recording the facial expressions of the users. And this was then dropped when the news media then publicized this, and the little cameras have been taped over, is my understanding, for privacy concerns. So in terms of the navigations, there are two. Think of this in sort of two different ways. One is the user-centric model of navigation, which essentially says, I know where I am, I know where I need to go, and I know where I'm trying to go. And then the system-centric model of navigation, where you have embedded navigation systems, supplemental navigation systems, and advanced navigation systems. So as you'll see, each of these essentially complements the other. The system-centric essentially provides different ways and means for assisting in the user-centric, and essentially providing the tools that the user-centric model it provides to the users. So in terms of, I know where I am, the user should always know where they are within the system. And you want to present a clear structure of the information hierarchy. And you also want to indicate the user's current location within that hierarchy. So here we are, another sort of classic map showing, you are here. This is where you actually are situated, and it gives you a sense as to what are the things immediately around. And this is seemingly, looks like a campus map in this case. Cornell, and it is hospital and campus map by the looks of it. And the equivalent to this, showing essentially where you are, is essentially the good old-fashioned breadcrumb that you typically see within many websites. And that's exactly what's being pointed out here, where it says home, computers and tablets, computer accessories, mice and keyboards, gaming mice, and then specific product information. In this case, on the Logitech G Wired Optical Pro gaming mouse. Woohoo! Which is all very cool. So again, you now know where you are within this hierarchy, and if you wanted to go up a level, if you wanted to go all the way back to computers and tablets, if you wanted to just go back to gaming mice or perhaps to just mice and keyboards, you can go and do that. It provides, that's what the classic breadcrumb mechanism does within a website. There's another version of that here. This is actually another. This is actually a project that I'd been working for. This shows the interface for a CCMS, not a web CMS. It's actually a component content management system. It's actually called the Ixiasoft CCMS Web, and this, what you're seeing here, pointing out from the red arrow, is the breadcrumb trail for where the user is when writing or creating a structured document, in this case using data XML. So in this case, it's showing you that within essentially a portion of the Acme User's Guide, here is this particular topic is the login to the Acme interface. And then if you wanted to navigate up to other topics that are related, you can then click back onto Acme User Guide, and then you can then navigate through a hierarchical tree type of view that allows you to and then switch down to different topics, and then to perhaps add or essentially write more content. Because in this case, this is not so much a browser for existing content. This is essentially a browser for creating content. And again, this is really just showing that the breadcrumb mechanism is prevalent and is useful in more than just your typical standard web navigation. So you can see here we have also several types of browser navigation features. We have, what's typical is having things like the back button, as mentioned earlier. You can also see there the rarer to find right button going forward, and as you can see, some browsers omit that entirely. While it is still feasible for people to want to return to a page that they have already been to, that is in fact forward in the line, it's most people tend to do just fine without that, as you can see here. And then there's all the other things that we have come to expect. There's the refresh button. There is the home icon to bring you back to whatever home page that you or perhaps the browser default has set for you. And then the URL field where you can then type in a specific URL, then search, and whatever else you may need in it. But you can see that there's a lot of commonalities between the various types of browser views you see here. And by the way, the one on the top is Safari on a Mac. Then we have Chrome on a PC, Firefox also on a PC, and then an Android phone, and then Chrome on iPhone. That's actually what you're looking at here. So, in terms of web navigation system types, as I said, this is what I mentioned earlier. There's embedded. These tend to be global as well as local, and also contextual. So, providing that type of information depending on the context. And then we have supplemental navigation, which can be things like sitemaps, indexes, guides, configurators, and search. And then we have advanced navigation system types, which include personalization, customization, visualization, and also social navigation. In terms of, now looking at each of these, in terms of embedded navigation systems for global, they're intended to be present on every page and provide a link to the home page as sort of a matter of course, typically by clicking on the company icon. In sort of the standard place to find these would be in the upper left corner. Now, as you can see, that's not always, strictly speaking, the case. With the example of Apple, there's actually a bit of a gap between the actual Apple logo and the left-hand most side of the browser window, but certainly all of the other examples provided on this page show that. And that's not just speaking about the logos, but we also have, typically speaking, a top navigation bar or a main navigation bar, followed by what then other things that are typical include things like mega menus and fat footers, and these are terms that IAs use to describe the various types of navigation features. So, in terms of fat footer examples, they're a common web design pattern, providing a way for users to quickly access specific sections of a website, bypassing the navigational structure. Basically, providing the user with a shortcut to a common page type that tends to be more frequently used than others. The standard footer appears globally on your website at the bottom of every page. And in some cases, the hierarchical structure of a website can impede a user's progress through the website. Fat footers are just one way to help retain users in their journey within your website. So, and again, that's pretty much exactly what you see here. So this is the top one is from the Microsoft website, and the bottom one is from Zappos, which is a shoe selling site. Then we have another example here. So top examples from Yellow Pencil, which is a digital agency, providing information, again, answering the sort of common questions that people might come to a digital agency for, such as they do user research and strategic planning, responsive web design and content strategy, Canadian web hosting, so on and so forth. And then talking about their specialties, how to then get in touch, and then career openings. Great company. I've done work with them. That's part of the reason why I'm putting it here, is just a little bit of a plug. Definitely, if you're interested in the field, definitely follow their blog. And then we also have something like, say, Blue Origin down here, where we have where they provide information on careers, gallery, how to become an astronaut, and how to become a supplier, and general media inquiries. And then, essentially, it provides, again, a lot of information that people may typically come to the website trying to find. And keep in mind that the user has scrolled down this far, so the information architect needs to think to themselves, what's the next logical step in the user's journey? Providing the information that, again, they may have missed or skipped when scrolling through the length of the web page that they were viewing, and again providing essentially here the next possible steps where the user can go next. Now we have the idea of mega menus, and these are basically our flat accordion style expandable menus. They're really a good way to provide access to a wide variety of categories quickly. And large retailers that have a broad array of items like Amazon and eBay tend to have these types of menus. So in this case, you can see here we have eBay, and you want to go to shop by category, and sure enough, they provide then a list of all of the most popular category types that come up. And you may see at the bottom right, there's also a CO categories, which is clearly going to be a much larger list. But again, this particular mega menu provides information on the most typical things that people will be coming to the eBay website to look at. Similarly, here we are with Adidas, and here is their mega menu. So we have essentially, we're looking at this one for the men's related shoes, clothing, accessories, and so on. And again, providing the type of things that people who are coming to, in this case, for the shopping for menswear of one sort or another, essentially trying to provide all of the major links you might want to go through here. The same would then apply to women, kids, sports brands, and so on and so forth. So and then we get into things like this, and mega menus tend to work well on the desktop, but not with mobile devices. So what you see on the left is Amazon.ca from actually summer 2018, when they had a mega menu, and on the right is what you see from when I last checked in 2019, which is definitely designed to work best on a mobile device. So mega menus look great and work well on the desktop, but as for fairly obvious reasons, they tend not to work well within a mobile view. So, and again, given that mobile design is in many ways the primary way that websites are being designed, you need to keep this sort of thing in mind when you're looking to design a new website, for example, or redesign one. Then we have things like local navigation, essentially often categories within a global navigation area. So in this case, we have something sort of akin to a mega menu, I should say, where in this case somebody's clicking on computers, tablets, and accessories, and then they're seeing all of the major subsections that then appear under that. And again, the typical examples would be, like full subsites that you may see on some very large websites. You may have then vertical navigation bars and then sub-menus appearing underneath that. Another example here, again, in this case, showing individual information once you've actually gone down to the local level, and we can see things like the breadcrumb trail, where we have home, computers and tablet, and then desktop computers. And then we have additional information that is adjacent to this specific item. So we have the departments to the left, everyday computing, performance and gaming computers, so on and so forth, and then additional categories. So this is trying to provide a bottom-up approach to navigation, showing essentially what is adjacent to this type of page. Then we get to the idea of contextually embedded navigation. This is the sort of thing that supports associated learning, and provides additional information on what you think the information user may want. So that the classic thing here is the see also type of link, where we have as what you can see in this particular case, see also, and then the various bullet points that are related to that. Same sort of thing comes with say Wikipedia, where you have, in this case, you have the information architecture page, and then you have a whole you have a bar on the right that talks, in this case, about information science, and then its role within general aspects, and then the things which are adjacent to that, such as information access, information management, information retrieval, information seeking, so on and so forth. So this is, again, it's contextual. It's dependent very specifically on where this particular thing fits within its own hierarchy and or classification system. Now, in terms of implementation, this is sort of the typical ways in which these types of things are employed. So generally speaking, you looking at the ones in grayscale, you have global navigation on the top, followed by local navigation on the left-hand side, and then you have contextual navigation in the body content in the center. And that relates essentially to global navigation to, where am I at the moment? And then local nav is, well, what's nearby? And then contextual navigation is what's related to what's here. Looking at the one on the bottom, that's actually more the sort of thing that you're going to find on typical mobile ways of implementing this type of information. So you may still have a global nav main, so to speak, at the top, but then it's essentially an inverted L. So very similar to the standard desktop type, which is the grayscale version immediately above that. The horizontal one essentially takes the local nav and then puts it directly underneath the directly underneath the main. So again, that is very much a something that you'll find more typically on mobile. And then you have something that's kind of a symbiosis, an amalgam of the two types, where you have an embedded local nav within the main section. Again, that's another type of way of organizing information primarily within a mobile setting, and you can see from the image on the top right, in terms of doing a conceptual map. Again, it's the idea is essentially for the desktop, you have something that is equivalent to, say, an inverted L. And you will still see that occasionally on mobile devices. And then the mobile tends to have, as you see, a global nav on the top, followed by local nav immediately underneath it, so the horizontally arranged one. And then the body content is essentially the remainder of that particular web page. And again, it provides the same type of manner of accessing the information. It just depends on the context in which the content is actually being viewed, be it desktop, be it mobile. And again, something you might want to think about when you're examining the information relating to your target websites. Take a look at what those websites look like, not just on your desktop browser, but also within your mobile device. See if there's any particular changes. Is it in fact a responsive website? Most websites are these days, but that's not always the case, and that's something you might want to comment on if in fact it is not fully responsive. And also note the differences in terms of the navigation styles. What type of implementation of navigation has it actually implemented in this particular case? Is it essentially the exact same as on the desktop as on mobile, or has it been optimized for with mobile in mind? So in terms of implementation, in terms of mobile web pages, navigation bars are often hidden off screen on either the left or right side of the content. They are then exposed using a menu button along the top of the screen. In mobile apps,
primary navigation bars are often rendered at the bottom of the screen within easy reach of the user's thumbs. So that's exactly what you see here with on the ESPN website. In terms of supplemental navigation with sitemaps, this is very much essentially reinforces the existing information hierarchy. It is, for all intents and purposes, a showing you what the top-down hierarchy for a given website looks like and how it's been designed. And so in this particular case for the Apple website, it does provide initial information about Apple, news and events, where to buy, account, store services. But essentially it is another version of the hierarchy for the website. Having said that, it's different in terms of it doesn't try to do a one-to-one match to what's on the navigation menu. It simply shows you essentially what is the hierarchy of web pages, which can be in fact quite scattered on this particular website as to where everything is. Essentially, it's providing wayfinding services to various disparate web pages in what's known as the sitemaps. Then we get to things like supplemental navigation, which can include things like, say, indexes. These are for users who already know the name of the item that they're looking for. So this type of thing tends to be aimed almost exclusively at expert users. Essentially, there are two ways to create these types of things. One is manually, and then one is using a controlled vocabulary. Now, in this particular case, you can see here, A to Z site index for the United Nations, because there's so many different types of organizations and or classifications within the UN. You can simply go to the alphabetized list here, click on the letter, and you will go to all of the things that then begin with that letter. And again, this makes sense if you are somebody who knows exactly what you're looking for. You know what the name of the particular organization, for example, that you're trying to find, and this provides in that case, kind of an expert's path to find what you're looking for. And then, this can be, in terms of how it's managed, this can be done manually. In other words, it's like, oh yeah, there's a new organization, or we're getting lots of search results looking for this particular thing. We should probably add that to the index. Or again, it can be done via controlled vocabulary, which essentially says, whenever you see this term, the user most likely means this, and then you want to take them to that particular page. And then you essentially provide see alsos for that particular context. Then we have things like navigation guides. Whoops, I'm sorry. I don't know why that is displaying slightly askew. See if I can fix that. Hang on a second. I do not know. I don't seem to have a left and right nav bar. I'm sorry. So hopefully, sorry, I'm going to have to leave this as is for now. So in terms of individual guides, these are, as you say here, they supplement existing means of navigation. They ought to be short, and the user should always be able to exit them at any point. These are, essentially little, and as I say here, they're guides. They're here specifically to walk you through typically a new feature, or perhaps a wholly new section of the website that people may not have encountered before. It is essentially a form of interactive tutorial, and people can. Ideally, you want to be able to step back and forth and get out of it at any time. These typically, these are typically guides, and often you get these also within applications. Also, can be in fact step-by-step in more in-depth tutorials, and also walkthroughs, so sort of very quickly showing here are the things you need to know to be able to get through the website. Then we have something what are known as configurators, and these essentially allow users to easily traverse complicated decision making by moving through a linear process or jumping back and forth. So in this particular case, instead of, so this is the StructTube website, and we're looking at a velvet love seat called the Nelly, and the configurator in this case is essentially allowing you to choose different colors that are available for the Nelly Velvet Love Seat. So we're looking at the pink one at the moment, but the idea is that if you either scroll over or click, depending on how the mechanism is set up, the various other colors, instead of having to navigate to a whole other web page, which then shows you what it would look like with gray and with a dark red and a dark blue and then a dark green, it then allows you to just essentially look at the same item and how it would look like in different colors. So that's essentially what a configurator does. This is sort of the basic version of the configurator and what to expect from it. And there are certainly more types. And here's something these are both optimized for mobile use. So we have, and this is the name of the firm, Ugly Christmas Sweaters to the left. And probably not something you're thinking of a whole lot this time of year, but you know, it's there. And essentially what it does is that it's very much designed to work within the mobile view. You see the ugly Christmas sweater at the bottom. And then you change the sweater color, you can change the pattern, you can add an image to it, you can add text, change the size. You can also then move around where you want text to appear. And in my case, I have a, IA is an iterative process because that I've always said that I would like to have that on a T-shirt or an ugly Christmas sweater. So here finally is my chance if I want to. And anyways, the point being is that you can change the different colors, you can change the patterns, you can do all of these things, and you see the results immediately. So this is a more complex configurator. And then what you see on the right-hand side is IKEA's configurator for the Billy bookcase. And they're both, as I say, really optimized for use on a mobile phone. The IKEA configurator comes up when you click what appears to be a drop-down selector for choosing a color, and essentially it shows you here are the various color options that are available for the Billy. You can also, again, you tend to see this on larger websites where that have been able to delve and get a lot of information, is more personalized recommendations on information that they think the user might be interested in. In this case, this is Amazon. Showing me some various things based on my past purchasing experiences that Amazon thinks I might be interested in. In this case, MST3K videos, a book on David Bowie, and hey, check this out, another cool book on information architecture, looking at mapping experiences from O'Reilly. I might want to have to go back to that one. That looks interesting. Anyways, personalization, again, the idea is that showing information to their user based upon a model of the behavior, needs, or preferences of that individual. So, I mean, it's fairly obvious what I was doing in this case. So in the first instance, hey, I was actually looking for a gift for a friend who loves Mystery Science Theater 3000. I like reading books about music, and in this case, the last one I had a look at was on David Bowie's Low from the 33 and a third series, and then this was another recommendation. And then I was checking out if there was in fact a new edition of the Polar Bear book, and they then recommended this. So again, based on past experiences, these are the individual things that Amazon was trying to suggest in that case. And again, this wouldn't apply probably to anybody else in this particular class. It's very much idiosyncratic based on previous habits of going to various different types of pages, and then essentially there's almost certainly sort of an algorithm in this that says somebody has bought who has bought this particular item, what else would they be interested in? Then that is what is then shown to me. Now I didn't actually buy anything in this case, but still it's trying to tempt me to come back to look at one or more of these items. Then we have things like customization, which gives the user direct control over some combination of presentation, navigation, and content options. So in this case, what we see here is a Gmail menu where you can actually drag and drop something that you find as important, such as, say, your circle of friends, and you bring that up into what's considered important, and then Gmail will then remember that setting and then will display preferentially that choice that you've made. And then we come to things like visualization, and this is another example of evolution in website design. So this screenshot, okay, this is from 2018. They no longer, and IKEA, I should say, they no longer provide this information when the user hovers over an item, as you see here with the Malm 2-drawer desk sort of pop-up window. You need to click on it to get more info, much like what you saw a few slides back. Again, this is another optimization aimed at mobile users. So the pop-up is useful in something like a desktop situation where you have the available space, but much less so in a mobile environment. So again, you need to keep in mind the optimizations which are specific to one type of viewing environment or the other. And then last but not least, we also have essentially a way of sort of socially navigating through things. So here we have the feed. I believe this is the Twitter feed from the U of T, providing socially based information about, in this case, the library is forgiving overdue fines for canned food donations, which is a great thing, and then providing other things which are perhaps related to that, such as the other trending items which are provided there, which may or may not have a direct info link or not, but it is another way of providing information and other paths for people to potentially go down if they are of interest. So, to sort of wrap things up, consistency really does breed familiarity. So websites that look similar typically behave similarly, and they don't require additional learning. So whenever possible, take advantage of that. Now, having said that, you need to be careful. One of the typical criticisms that's been leveled at information architecture as a discipline is the critique of essentially saying that too often IA suggests that sameness is what designers supposedly ought to be striving for, and that's most definitely not the case. It's really talking about what are mechanisms that people who have been using the web for decades now are already familiar with, instead of coming up with something that is new and novel and not aimed at the user. That's really the critical thing. It has to be aimed at the user. Now, if there is something that is new and novel that is fully aimed at the users, and something that perhaps a particular audience is likely to understand and get based on perhaps a metaphor that they are likely already familiar with, then yes, you can definitely do innovation. It's something that is that leads essentially to a more pleasurable, delightful experience on the web. You don't want to bore people by coming to your website, but by the same token, you don't want novel things to necessarily get in the way of people getting essentially from A to B within your website. So, the consistency definitely is an important thing. Also, in terms of external consistency, where this also extends to where things are on a web page, and how different widgets on a web page function. Things like that. You don't want to, generally speaking, go too far off the map, so into areas where people simply don't know what to do next. And then, again, there's also internal consistency. Template use means that once people learn how to use your site, each page provides familiarity. So, for example, if one of your target websites is, say, a U of T faculty or some other website that again uses some sort of large templating feature. Another classic case would say be the City of Toronto website, or most municipal websites. They will often have sections or divisions under them which are essentially mandated to use the same type of municipal template in terms of look and feel and design. But and that is to provide a sense of internal consistency and familiarity for people trying to use that part of the website. So if someone has used one particular portion of the City of Toronto website before, the going to somewhere else, potentially, at very, very different portion of the Toronto website, there will still be some familiarity there because the basic navigation features are probably all essentially the same. Again, the same with the sort of the colors being used. Even in somewhere completely different, there will still be a sense of of knowing where they are and how they can potentially navigate within that particular website. So again, these things are all important, and in fact, we'll be looking at that in more detail in the second half of the lecture happening on Tuesday evening. All right, and now we're going to. I should have keyed up the music for the Star Wars Empire March. Now on to dark patterns. Yes, and here's the classic example: opt in, don't opt out, don't not opt in, or opt out all, which you can just see in slight gray. Just, can you make that out? Yeah. Now, what I'm going to explain what these are in a moment, but well, in fact, I just get to that. What are they? Okay, they're a form of user interface designed explicitly to work against a user's interest. Gray patterns are borderline techniques used as forms of persuasion. So some of them may be justifiable if they are in fact more in the user's interest than for the corporate interest. But so really this is just to say that there's kind of a spectrum. And again, this all works at the level of human psychology. Now, why do I think it's worthwhile for the information architecture students to learn about this? From the I perspective, it's good to know the techniques that have been used and to recognize them for what they are. And from the user perspective, if you know about them, you're less likely to be fooled by them. And what I'll also say is that, again, from an I perspective, assuming that there will be a few students in this class who will go on and work in the field of information architecture, recognizing what these things are, you now have a better sense as to if there is the ethical consideration in many of these cases, as you'll see, and you knowing what they are, you can advocate that no, this is not in the interest of the user. Let's come up with a different mechanism that in fact is better aimed and will not insult, cheat, or essentially cast the company in a negative light by using these types of systems, as you'll see. So, as I said before, arguably many of these types of examples exist along a continuum, and whether they're light or dark in some cases depends on the situation and intention. So on the left-hand side, we have honest interfaces where users are put first, even at the expense of short-term revenue and conversion rate gains. And then sort of in the middle is the gray area where steps are taken to boost conversion rates that are not in users' interest, but arguably are necessary to make the business viable. Yeah, that's definitely a gray area. And then in the truly dark patterns include steps that are taken by the business that are unarguably deceptive to users, though carefully placed on the right side of the law. At least that is what one hopes. And by the way, this illustration and almost all of these things within this section, I do provide URLs to delve into these particular subjects further. So this is from a lovely List Apart article called Dark Patterns, Deception versus Honesty in UI Design. Now, there's a nice website called Dark Patterns. I think it's darkpatterns.org. There's also a terrific book. It's a lovely read called Evil by Design, Interaction Design to Lead Us into Temptation by Chris Nodder. And there is, in fact, a website called evilbydesign.info with a free chapter available there. It looks at more elements of online persuasion, not just dark patterns. But again, if you're looking for a nice overview of this type of thing, this is a nice introductory book to the subject. But having said that, there's a lot of other resources. Now I'll get to that near the conclusion of this particular section. Okay, so looking at these bit by bit, so one of the categories is essentially classic misrepresentation. So here we have, now this is from several years ago. This is from the LinkedIn website, and the action in this case was if you clicked the Add to Network, between the years of 2011 to 2014 for all of your LinkedIn friends would in fact spam your contacts with LinkedIn messages. So essentially, as it says here, stay in touch with your contacts, we found, when you added your address book. Invite them to LinkedIn so they can contact you. And then you just select all, and it says add to network. It does not say, spam all your friends with email. This, as it says here, led to a class action lawsuit for damage to reputation by its users because you want to invite a few friends to join you on LinkedIn, and you inadvertently spam, everybody that you know, and again, that can definitely affect the reputation of people in this particular case. And this was then settled for $13 million US. So when I said earlier is that generally speaking, these things try to skirt things on the correct side of the law. As you can see, there are some cases where it potentially crosses over and can in fact invoke lawsuits. And again, as an information architect, I would argue that your job is not just to advocate on behalf of the users. That is a primary thing. But you're also there to help protect the organization that you're helping to represent, and to ensure that that you are staying on the right side of the law in the UI designs that you come up with. Now, the next one is one I'm sure you probably have all encountered. In fact, this is something I mentioned, I think, in the first or second lecture, the idea of what's known as confirm shaming. And essentially, it's when websites insult the user for not opting into their, precious email program. And, essentially, as you can see at the one on the top right, change your company and career today, sign up for the review today. And yes, make me more effective. No, I don't want more knowledge. Oh, yeah, nice. Or free beginner's garden guide, enter email address, get your free guide, woo. Or no thanks, I know everything about gardening. It's like, yeah, no. And there's a nice quote I found here from a Vice article. Presenting ostensibly funny copy, such as, no thanks, I don't want to see cool cars, or no thanks, my business is already perfect, and equating the declination of an offer with inadequacy or mendacity. This sort of thing definitely turns me off whenever I see these types of things, even if I'm interested in them. If I see something like this that comes up, I, just as a matter of principle, opt not to. If this type of practice is wholly unnecessary, and do whatever you can to help quash this. This is definitely not something to try to encourage. Then we have another form of misrepresentation, what's known as visual interference. So in this case, what you see here is a visual interference pattern on greenfingers.com. The option to opt out of the marketing communication is great, making it seem unavailable, even though it can in fact be clicked. And this is one example, and you're going to see several examples from a paper called Dark Patterns at Scale: Findings from a Crawl of 11,000 Shopping Websites. And we'll talk more about that later. Similar thing in terms of misrepresentation, what's known as the dirty screen. This is also, sort of considered a form of visual interference. Ads that may appear to have a smudge or a hair on your screen, making you want to instinctively scrape it away or tap it. And of course, that is the idea. So with Chatmos, in that case, there's a little smudge there, and it's like, is that something on my screen? And the same goes with the very obvious looking hair for that Black Friday shoe sale of whatever. It's like, these examples are from an article from uxdesign.cc called "Stop Calling These Dark Pattern Designs" or "Dark UX. These are simply asshole designs." They're not wrong. Definitely not wrong. I mean, this is so clearly a form of instinctual clickbait, if you like, that it really is it is beyond the pale. Here's another form I am sure you have all run across: the idea of what's known as social proof, with the idea that, well, if other people are doing it, it must be right. So the idea is you want to dispel the doubt by as the seller by repeating positive messages. Don't raise the opposite behavior as an option. And, even weak forms of social proof such as locale can in fact work. And then use images of certification and endorsement, even if they're not strictly speaking applicable. So, looking at the first example, what other items do customers buy after viewing this item? Okay, here are the various items. And again, this is arguably, I don't want to, this is white to gray. This is essentially saying here, as it says, here are things that other customers have bought after viewing this particular item. And it's like, well, maybe something else is perhaps more along the lines of what you're looking for. So that's, but again, notice the way it's portrayed. It's like, other customers who've come to the website, and these are their behaviors. Perhaps this is something you might want to look at. So it's definitely not a dark pattern in that first instance, but the one underneath that. Redmond, mom makes Botox doctors furious. Read how a Washington mom discovered a free facelift secret. ... Yeah, right. So this was when I was on a field trip. Sorry, I was on a trip to a conference, and that happened to be in Seattle, and I noticed that this exact same ad came up. I think it was on the Slashdot site or something like that. And when I was back home, it said, Toronto, mom makes Botox doctors furious. And I'm sure if I was in San Francisco, it's like San Francisco, mom makes. So, again, there is some sort of variable there, and there's clearly, if there is in fact some mom making Botox doctors furious, why would Botox doctors get? Man, they're chill people, right? I mean, no. Anyways, the point being is that this is trying to gull users to think that this is perhaps some sort of local phenomena or locally approved, or essentially somebody perhaps in your social circle that lives within your city knows about this, and you can't see my air quotes, secret. And that is a way of, it's kind of like a form of bandwagon jumping. It's essentially saying, here is something that, locals like you ought to know about, and trying to suck you in. And all it is just a variable inserted into the ad to wherever the heck you may be. I'm sure that if I was on a base in Antarctica, it would be like, Antarctica, mom makes, the same thing. And then the one at the bottom here is the Experts Exchange is trusted by 44 of the top 50 Fortune 500 companies. Now, having said that, it then includes various icons from top Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies in this particular case. But is that in almost all of those cases, I know, how do I put this? Essentially, these companies, these top Fortune 50 companies, tend to ask to have permission before they will allow some third-party firm to allow themselves to be associated with this, and this is almost certainly, I would bet that something like at least half of these have given no approval, if in fact approval was asked for in the first place. And again, the idea is that like there's all these big companies that are coming to this, and I would bet you that all this really means is that somebody at some point within CVS or Verizon, under their main domain, once had a look at the Experts Exchange website, and then perhaps they are now being sort of lumped in as people who are essentially people from that organization are using it. Even if it's not, the implication is that they may be using it professionally when it may just be casually or completely in a non-professional manner. But the implication is much stronger with the icons and the associations, even if they're perhaps not fully, even if that's not perhaps fully on. But again, that depends on how this is being put across. And so this is not dark pattern, but it's almost certainly grayish. Let's put it that way. Then you have things like the things that emphasize achievement as perhaps some form of status, that give essentially things that reward the users by giving them more status when they achieve particular goals that are almost always in line with the company's goals, such as, for example, these examples from LinkedIn and TripAdvisor. So, you can then, get your next badge from being a senior reviewer by adding another review. And, now this isn't necessarily a dark pattern. Again, I'd say this is much more of a gray pattern because, the benefit is there ever a benefit to the user in this particular instance? Are you going to get a cheaper rate somehow? Or I don't think there's any sort of mechanism that actually benefits the user unless they're somebody who just wants to go out and do nothing but rate things. And I'll confess that I am somewhat suspicious of people who want to do nothing but rate things. That's sometimes I think their judgment is not necessarily the best in that particular case. So, but in any event, again, the point here is that the benefit is, in fact, much more aimed at the organization rather than the user. And as IAs, you should be advocating for things that definitely benefit the user. Now, this is, in fact, a form in kind of a way of gamification, again, trying to make it entertaining. So this is not really a dark pattern. It's definitely much more in sort of the gray area. But I'll tell you that when I get constant emails from these, saying that, you're still just one review away from getting a senior reviewer badge, that at that point it crosses over to being, gray to just flat out annoying. And then, sort of kind of the last thing I want to do is now add another review. So again, it depends on the context and also the ways and means by which these things are then put across. Then we have things like, say, the classic Roach Motel situation, which, as I say here, is basically a situation that's easy for a user to get into, but hard to get out of. So in this example from darkpattern.org's online presentation, signing up for LA Fitness is easy and can be done online, but it is, it can't be canceled online. So easy in, join today online, initiation fee, and then $8.95 per week, as you see here from this old screenshot, and then a difficult out, where it says your request to cancel your fitness membership cannot be processed online. You may cancel your membership by mailing written notice of your cancellation request to such and such an address. And another example of this is trying to cancel your Amazon.com account. And in fact, one of the things I'll be adding to the suggested watchings for this class is the convoluted way that is necessary to cancel an existing Amazon.com account. Then we have the idea of disguised ads. So this example from TV station WFSB mixes the news with ads in the news section. Notice the following advertisement section, which would seem to indicate legitimacy to the news items appearing immediately above it. So essentially, and again, this is another very common thing. I don't doubt that everybody here has run into these things. I'm surprised. I guess they must be effective because they have been around for years and years and years, and I still keep seeing these types of things on many of the websites that I typically go to. And again, the idea is that by association, you have information that is that is from an actual website, and then you have the information that is in the news by Taboola. And 8 makeup basics for green eyes. That is in the news. Is it? Yeah. Okay. And then we had advertisements, which again, by association, would apparently seem legitimate. Now, I have to say that I think over time, this type of thing is, people recognize the clickbait for what it is. And I suspect that over time this has become less and less effective. I don't know that for a fact. That's sort of my guess from seeing what else I've seen in terms of the effectiveness or lack thereof of things like banner ads. And again, that's something we're going to be looking at later in the class on Tuesday night. Then there's this is really nasty. This is definitely a dark pattern, a sneak into basket. So in purchasing an item gets sneaked into the shopping cart basket. And often depends on the user not noticing what the default selection actually is. And note that the first example here, the one on the top, is actually from Oxfam, which is a charity. So okay, be there and change lives with a regular donation. I wish to make a donation of, and then you you put in a value in pounds in this case. And note that the default is regular monthly donation. You might be there to make a one-time donation, and maybe you want to make it for, like £100. That'd be, I believe, about 150 or so Canadian dollars. And then, you realize after the fact that it wasn't a single donation you made, it was actually a regular monthly donation. That can be a pretty hefty thing. And again, having that as a default item is definitely something that is I don't want to say beyond the pale, but it is suspect, to say the very least. And again, you have to ask yourself, is this really for the user's benefit or for the organization's benefit? And I think clearly in this case, it's aimed at the organization's benefit. A similar case, and one that is really more straightforwardly a dark pattern, is in this case from a Comet website, where essentially you're going to buy an Apple iPad, and with a particular cost that's there, and then it automatically throws in the Apple iPad case. This is not something that you've actually gone to add yourself. It just automatically appears, and you have to actually remove it. But before you actually go on, and again, the idea is that people may not realize this, and they just go forward and they then buy an accessory which they may in fact not need, or may think that is part of the original package. And now it does say what the full amount is there, but again, if this is done fairly quickly, it's easy to sort of miss this and to realize after the fact that you get overcharged. I've noticed a similar feature appearing on some pizza delivery websites, where it may in fact have something that says, here is, you're about to order your pizza, and then a pop-up comes up and says something like, hey, would you like to have this to go along with your order, sort of thing. A lot of people tend to like this thing with your particular type of pizza. And and then it then adds that, and then you click OK, and then it automatically adds that. Now, to be fair, that's more of a gray pattern, because it's clearly saying that it's an addition, not implying that it is a standard part of the order, and that you have to opt out deliberately. Whereas what you're seeing here with the iPad case is less distinct. Another example here is from Sneak in Basket. So the top one, as it says here, Sneak into Basket on avasflowers.net. Despite requesting no greeting cards, one worth $3.99 is automatically added to the order. Same sort of thing again for hidden costs on proflowers.com. The care and handling charge, $2.99, is disclosed on the last step. And then similar on hidden subscription on wsjwine.com, where on the left the website fails to disclose that the Advantage service is an annual subscription worth $89 unless the user clicks on Learn More. Yikes. And then the service is then added to the cart, as you see here. So wow, yeah. And again, these more examples from dark patterns at scale. Then we have things like, and again, sorry, this has gone off the page slightly, but essentially the user responds to a question that appears innocuous when it's first glanced at, but when read more carefully is not what initially seems. So this example from Kijiji asks users to activate the ad and pay for your selected Promote My Ad feature, which, by the way, in this case is purely optional. So once the user clicks on the link to activate an ad, they're taken to the payment screen, and the ad has already been posted. Another example is again from, in this case, a trick question from newbalance.co.uk. Opting out of marketing communications requires ticking the checkbox. So it says here, we'd love to send you emails with offers and new products from New Balance Athletics, but if you do not wish to receive these updates, please tick this box. So it's essentially putting the important, if you don't want to click it, then you have to enable it. It's like, which is sort of, against what you would normally think. So you tick it to opt out. Yeah, exactly. Then we have what's known as the urgency dark pattern. And again, this is another pattern that has become almost seemingly pervasive. Typically involves some sort of countdown timer or a limited time message. So again, we have an example from mattressfirm.com. The header displays a flash sale where the majority of discounted products remain the same on a day-to-day basis. And then we have a countdown timer on justfab.com. The offer is available even after the timer expires. So again, that's clearly there to just try to drive the sale, despite the fact that the offer, again in air quotes you can't see, is still there even after the timer goes away. And then the third example, we have limited time message from chickwish.com. The website claims the sale will end soon without actually stating a deadline. So again, then a similar sort of dark pattern is the scarcity low stock version, where you have a stock counter that, the stock counters can in fact be a useful mechanism. I know if I'm going to, like a classic case, like say the Canadian Tire website, I am sort of equidistant where I live between two different Canadian Tire websites, and if I'm looking for a specific item, it actually makes a lot of sense for me to check to see if the item exists in one or the other location before I actually head there. So that is far from being a dark pattern. Just saying, yes, we have quantity of X at this location, and we're out at this other location. Tells me, okay, well, I'm going to go to this store as opposed to one that doesn't have it. Okay, that makes perfect sense. But it can be used deceptively, encouraging essentially bandwagon jumping. So some websites decrement stock numbers in a deterministic time-based pattern. So in other words, if you actually take a look at what's going on, it's actually programmatically taking away numbers based on a predetermined pattern. Then that pattern is the same for whatever items are on the website. So it's clearly not people who are actually buying the items. It's actually some sort of mechanism that is always decrementing, 3 items the first time you look at the page, and then perhaps another, 2 items the next time, and it'll be the same each and every time. So it's clearly nothing to do with an actual, looking at actual stock numbers. And others use JavaScript libraries to randomly generate the stock values. So in this case, the top example here, low stock message from 6pm.com, where on the left, choosing a product option shows only 3 left in stock. And then the right, the out-of-stock product makes it seem that it is just sold out. So, in this case, it's essentially deceptive, showing that there is in fact nothing available. In this particular case, so it's not tied to any real stock mechanism by the looks of it, because the chances of 3 items of a 6XL thing being sold out is probably pretty high. And then we have a low stock on orthofeet.com, and the note here is that this appears for all products. Yes, so hurry, limited quantities left applies to absolutely everything, and you see that on more than one page, and you realize that this is clearly a deceptive practice. Then we have the related thing to a low stock is the idea of the high demand dark pattern. This dark pattern signals to users that the product is in high demand, suggesting that it might sell out soon. And as with the previous example, this can be generated by using JavaScript. So here is an example from Reddit looking at, and this is from a forum known as Asshole Design, and it's not dedicated to just things like websites. It did in fact start out that way, but it sort of encompasses more generalized things these days. But this is in this case, programmer looking at the actual JavaScript that's on the page, took a look at the thing that says 14 people are currently looking at this product, and it actually says there, persons viewing this product. The programmer apparently has some trouble with spelling with this, but that's clearly the code that's being used to randomly generate whatever number that is. So again, this is not connected to reality. It's just connected to a JavaScript that makes it seem that there is a different number. So if you come back to this page later, you will see a wholly different number. That it makes it appear as though something has in fact changed on the website. And again, this is clearly not connected to any sort of actual tracking mechanism. It is just an isolated thing saying, throw up a random-ish number that is essentially, it's got to be at least 12, and then, add a certain random number to that to make it seem like there's a lot of people looking at it. Then we have things like anti-scan trick questions. And this is examples from Ryanair. This is from a few years ago. And you gotta like this. This is, okay, so this is a drop-down menu for buy AXA travel insurance. And basically, it's, if I remember right, the way this worked is that this was, like you had to choose some particular value. It was like not like it was an opt-out thing. So, you then had to go hunting for the no travel insurance required. And look where it actually is in this particular list. It's not the first item. It's actually between Latvia and Lithuania. Why? I don't think there's a country called no travel insurance required in between those two countries, or it certainly isn't in alpha order, is it? In which case that would actually be just prior to Norway. No, you actually have to go looking for this. So again, in a non-optional selection for travel insurance, you have to go hunting for no travel insurance. If you can't find it, it's like, oh heck, I'll just put in my country name and charge whatever I get charged. Then we have the idea of what's known as privacy zuckering. This name, of course, is named after the CEO of Facebook, and it comes from from this article by Tim Jones on Facebook's and their quotes, evil interfaces. The quote is, "The act of creating deliberately confusing jargon and user interfaces which trick your users into sharing more info about themselves than they really want to." And again, you take a look at this particular Facebook settings page. Choose your privacy settings, customize them. Post by me to friends only, family to friends only, relationships, interested in looking for bio and favorited quotations, so on and so forth. And again, it's not necessarily easily apparent how all of these particular things would apply in the circumstance. Then we have the idea of, say, hidden costs, and this occurs when a user gets to the final stage of the checkout process only to discover an unexpected charge has come up. So in this case, when you click on the £3.75 plus plan, you get taken to a page which bills the user for a year's worth of time, which actually works out to £4.99 per month. Yikes. Then we have the classic bait and switch. So the user sets out to do one thing, but a different undesirable thing happens instead. So from this hotel.com example, the telephone link provided is not in fact the hotel number, but that of hotels.com. So essentially, this is a way for them to still capture the information about somebody wanting to book the particular hotel, and despite the fact that you see the information here. It's 4200 Great America Way, Santa Clara, zip code United States, and then a phone number. The obvious thing you're going to assume is that that's the home number for the hotel, not for hotels.com. Honestly.com baited unregistered users to think someone had posted an anonymous review about themselves. Only after registering and opting in does the user find that there is in fact quite often no actual review. So you actually have to provide them with information to be able to find out that in fact no, there's nothing there at all. So and again, that's a type of practice that is again wholly deceptive and classic bait and switch. We also have the idea of friend spam, where a website or app asks for your social media credentials, but then goes on to use those social media account to publicize itself as if the message is coming from you. Now, you don't see this so much anymore because this definitely stepped over the line in terms of the legalities. But it certainly did happen a lot several years ago, and until things like this were pointed out and lawsuits threatened. So in the Goodreads case, where we have share goods reads with my 699 Twitter friends that don't have an account yet. Yeah, remember that LinkedIn thing from earlier? That's almost identical in this case. And as it says here, this is way too easy to miss. Don't uncheck this, and you spam all your friends on Twitter. And then down here on, again, with Twitter, an application would like to connect to your account. This application would like the ability to access and update your data on Twitter. Yikes. So, and again, these sorts of things are less apparent these days, but that's not to say that they're wholly absent. So again, it behooves the users to keep an eye out for this type of thing. And again, for information architects to, essentially defend the users from having to encounter these types of dark patterns. And these examples are actually from darkpatterns.org under friend spam. Now, I did mention this case earlier. This is a recent and I think a fairly significant study on the pervasiveness of dark patterns. So this is a study from a bunch of students, at least I'm guessing students, sorry, maybe I shouldn't make that assumption, students/professors from primarily from Princeton, also one from the University of Chicago, and it's called Dark Patterns at Scale, Findings from a Crawl of 11,000 Shopping Websites. And this is from 2019, late 2019. And essentially they examined, as I say, roughly 11,000 popular shopping websites. And that popularity was determined by a third-party website that says, essentially that, here are the top 1,000 or top several thousand online shopping websites. And then they went and then characterized the types of dark patterns that are there. In fact, I highly recommend. I didn't put this on the the must-read list. I'll add a link to it in the module, but I won't make it a must-read. But it is very interesting. It is very informative, and it does a nice job of characterizing and putting into a hierarchy, essentially, the various types of dark patterns and describing them fully, saying, like, if this is the type of behavior you see, this is the type of dark pattern that it is. And what it found is that they found at least one instance of a dark pattern on approximately 11% of the examined websites, with 183 of these displaying deceptive messages. They also identified, and this I also found particularly interesting, 22 third-party firms that enable the dark patterns on these websites. So these are other firms that are have either direct mechanisms or some sort of perhaps promotional deal, which allows them to embed functions, or perhaps in some cases the company is embedding the functions deliberately themselves, again, to try to encourage buying behaviors which are essentially dark patterns. So again, terrific paper, very recent, highly recommended, and I've used, as you've seen, several of the examples from that paper in this slide deck. If you are interested in learning more about dark patterns in general, here are some good links to particular articles that I would definitely recommend. Dark Patterns, Deception versus Honesty in UI Design from a List of Parts. Using Dark Patterns for Good from uxbooth.com. Resisting the Dark Side, a primer on dark pattern UX from Web Designer Depot. Stop calling these dark patterns or dark UX. Again, I mentioned that earlier. That's from uxdesign.cc. Then LinkedIn Dark Patterns from medium.com. And there's also the Reddit on asshole design, which I have certainly picked out several examples, and I do make a point of going there fairly regularly because I do find new and often egregious examples of very poor dark pattern. Very poor, well-designed dark pattern, I should say, on these particular websites. And having said that, that is the final slide for the first half of this lecture for class number 6. Yes, lecture number 6. I will see everybody, I hope, on Tuesday evening, where we'll be looking at delving into some things further. In fact, one thing I'm going to be talking about a little bit is I'm going to be providing you with the tools to do a version of a card sort. So I'm going to be posting information shortly after I finish posting this video talking about the basics of how to do a very basic do it DIY card sort exercise, and then we'll have a look at how that can be applied for the next studio session within for an actual online program that allows you to do card sorting online with any number with a certain number, I should say, of potential users. And with that, I will conclude the first part of this class. Goodbye, folks, and see you all on, or hear you all, I should say, on Tuesday evening. Take care and stay safe.